We have Mohammad Daud, which is an AI evangelist and co-founder of ALO, AI for the Least Observed. He will tell us about applying AI and big data in improving the life of the visually impaired. Mohammad will tell us how he and his team developed the artificial intelligence integrated sunglasses. That is a virtual companion to assist the blind person in their everyday life. He will tell us our interactive, prototype-driven approach in both hardware and software, focused on artificial intelligence and big data, helped them to address the needs for both the blind person and his family member. Up to you, Mohammad.
Thank you, Alessandro. Welcome everyone to Accessibility Day 2020. I am Eusuf, and I'm going to share our experience on applying AI and big data, improving the life of the visually impaired. We will start with some reality check. Globally, there are 285 million visually impaired people. 90% of them belong to low and mid-income group. 8% belongs to working group and 1.4 billion children. And this is based on the information which is provided by World Health Organization. So that is our reality. And by the way, this data is from 2018. So the latest figure could be more or could be less, but maybe around the same place. In our regular life, we are lucky that we have our eyesights, but those people who have difficulties with their vision, especially those who has completely lost their vision, we call the blind people, we find them in various forms. People walking with stick, people walking with some assistant, in many countries, the dog, or maybe they are alone. For the pain of their life, it is generally assumed, I'm saying here, repeating here again, it is generally assumed their problems are mostly fourfold. Social stigma, that means they become isolated in the society. They have heavy dependency on others. They have lack of information, as they do not get the visual information like others. So definitely they do have a great lack in their access to information. And usually they are lonely and they have very limited ways to fight with their loneliness during the leisure time. So I would now say what is the idea and how we verified the idea and went up to the prototype. So we call it ideation to prototype. Everything starts with empathy. And the empathy is connecting with your end users to experience their pain, their feeling, their problems, circumstances, situation. This empathy is very important in developing any application. Till we really understand the pain of the end user, it is not always viable or feasible to develop a product or offer a service. So, and empathy gives us the power to really connect with the end users. At this phase, for the empathy, we have talked to more than 300 blind people globally. Our target group was those who are not blind from birth, those who have lost their eyesight due to some other reason, for example, accident or disease. Diabetic is takes a very good toll in people's eyesight. So after talking to them, what we did, we went to define the problem statement. And a problem statement is the problems which we are trying to address. And then it comes to the phase of ideation. brainstorm in diversified group. It is not only the end users, the stakeholder belongs to their family members. We have found that when a working person becomes blind, for that family, it is not him who has lost an occupation. To assist him, there is a recurrent of another person to be staying at home or to be always with him. So theoretically, one blindness creates two disoccupation. In this ideation phase, we have also discussed with psychologists, social scientists, and definitely software developers who were passionate about to develop a solution for them. I'm telling till this point, we really do not know what we are going to develop. We are just doing brainstorming based on the empathy we have gained and the problems we are trying to address. And later, after ideation, we went for prototyping, and here is testing all the possibilities. So let's see one other thing, that is this empathy is concrete. That means it is real. That means all the pains of the, if not all the pains, major or whatever the pains the people shared with us, that those are true. That define and ideate, those are abstract. That means we are working on ideas, we are working on hypothesis, and the prototype is again mix between reality and abstract. That means that idea got some value and we have developed something to retest again with end users to see whether it addresses the pains. So this is those who are in the audience are well known with design thinking. This is the design thinking phases. I may not get much into the design thinking and development process now. We will touch that later, but my focus today would be how we have identified few key AI areas to solve the problems of the blind people in terms of improving their living quality. So our value proposition was the pain which we found during the empathy phase. The blind people has a fear of unknown. Even in their known circumstances, things can get changed which they may not be aware of. They have another strong pain wait for assistance, and they have almost zero independence. For that, we define the pain reliever would be listening what others are saying, higher level of autonomy, and the solution has to be affordable. As I have mentioned already, 90% of the visually impaired people belongs to the low to mid income group. So the product what we were thinking, a sunglass for blind people, because we found that that is one common object which almost every blind people is using. That sunglass has to be smart enough, not in a traditionally smart way, but it has to be intelligent enough which can provide almost human kind of assistance. And for the cost factor, we have also defined a collective intelligence. I will explain more detail on collective intelligence later on. And the task this sunglass will be performing is we provide assistance. It will be able to autonomously call for assistance and trying to understand surrounding, because human assistance is always providing the update about the surroundings of the blind person. Our last value proposition was what would be the gain. The gain for the blind person would be he will be able to back into the society. He would have some level of autonomy, and the self-confidence level will get improved. And the gain creator, that means what is the output of the of this gain? Autonomy in almost in every part of life, and the fear of unknown can get converted into discovery of unknown. So the features which we have thought there are plenty, but we have regrouped it in 4 areas. One is cognitive intelligence, those which deals with computer vision or image processing. Then we have also we are also trying to implement artificial spatial intelligence for risk detection and depression detection. In a study, we found that more than 88% of blind people gets a severe depression attack every 2 years on an average. As they have lost their value of life or they have to recreate the value of life, this psychological stress leads to depression, which is very normal. And that's why we are working on artificial spatial intelligence. We are also incorporating some big data. Apart from collective intelligence, this sunglass will be able to provide some online activities like users of social media, sports commentary. That means it would be capable of reading the online content. And it has to have some phone operations. On the left side, I have written natural language processing because that is a key area. For example, if the Google Assistant does not provide us the information the way we want to hear, we may miss the information. And the same philosophy we are applying into this sunglasses. So we have finally decided to develop a sunglass which can see, listen, understand, and communicate. And the stakeholders to get satisfied by this idea as the team, the device sunglass itself, it is very demanding, how we will see later. The user itself, the family and friends of the user, the service desk, because this device and the blind person needs to be assisted by human based on the requirement. The management team, for an example, the management has decided lately that we have to apply design for environment. That means this sunglass has to be a carbon friendly. So that is the management pressure on the team. And we have to satisfy the data scientists, AI, and robotics team as well. Those are hardcore technical details that will not be part of this presentation today. Each of these items can be a part of one single webinar. Just to satisfy the techie people or innovative minded people, I often hear one question that what is the best way to go for AI applications development, because when machine is learning, the model is running, there is nothing to do, we have to wait. So waterfall or agile. But we basically have applied a hybrid of design thinking, lean startup, and agile. So from the prototype onwards, we allowed our target focus group, people who are blind people, to test the product, and each of their feedback we helped us to improve, from weight of the sunglasses, the comfort level, to the adoption with the artificial intelligence, like a talking sunglass. And there were several teams. I did not want to overcrowd this image with scalable agile. I just used the agile framework just to understand that every team worked in a iterative manner. The core functionalities of this sunglass, the objective is AI-based virtual assistant system, and the camera would be the eyes, the microphone would be the ears, and the bone conduction unit would be the mouth. That means there would be a bone conduction unit. And the reason for bone conduction unit, I'm going to explain. This is the image of our first prototype. And after several months of back and forth, this prototype was developed. And I repeat, this was the first prototype, so not very nice looking. So in this here we see that there would be a battery, camera, driver, charging unit. The camera would be on the front side, and the bone conduction. The reason of bone conduction the decision was when a person loses his sight, naturally they gain their auditory power, and it was not a good idea to close their ears with some kind of headphone or hearing device just to communicate with the sunglass or any AI system. So how does it really work? When the user talks to the sunglass, the following things gets happen. It is voice command activated. In a very simple term, is speech to text we are doing. Then the sunglass itself makes a decision what he has understood from the speech, and he grabs the image. That means he sees through his eyes. That means through the camera. He detects the object, and he gives the feedback to the user in a human way, not like that two glass for if the question were what is in front of me, it is saying two glass, four orange, and one bottle of water. It says in a human way, the way one person is communicating with another person. So what is here? It is basically a happy path, but definitely in every project there are some unhappy path happens, and in a brief, if the voice gets unrecognized, it asks back to repeat. And in the object detection phase, if it detects any new object, it provides back this information to the cloud-based AI models. And in the AI models, this object gets tagged, labeled, trained, and the new object gets deployed as a knowledge to the sunglass. Even though we are doing text, speech to text and text to speech I have written, but NLP is almost required everywhere. The major reason is this sunglass has to communicate like a human, or as close as possible like a human way. So the way it learns from its user, it learns from the way of the talking with this user, what kind of word makes him agitated, what kind of word makes him motivated. And over the period of time, using machine learning, this sunglass will be able to assist in a better way, in a sense that it would be able, it will try to become a friend to its user. The high level architecture, this I did not want to put, but I have seen in the registration there are a lot of tech people. So just to give them a high level architecture, we have incorporated the big data streaming. There is a device API. There are a few apps running on the device, and there is a mobile app for the friends and family. One thing to note here, that this sunglass is itself acts as a mobile phone, so that it is not a phone-based application. Because in our survey, we found that there was a concern for the family members to give a smartphone to a person who is unable to see. And moreover, there is also a risk of getting it stolen, or the person may lose it, but we won't be able to understand where he has left. On the cloud side or on the enterprise side, we have master data management, because we all know that AI model runs better on clean data. And that's why we have the data lake, and the model trainings are performed in the data lake based on the data lake data. So let us share with business cases. One scenario, we are seeing that a device has the self-diagnostic functionalities. That means if there is any hardware problem, that device itself can notify the backend that the battery is overheating, or the images are not getting processed properly. The threshold accuracy is getting too high. So in that case, it directly communicates with through the enterprise service bus, and three things happens. The service desk gets notified, they create case, and in fact, it is the automatic case creation from device. So those who are in the audience, those who are experienced with Internet of Things or IoT, I feel this is something similar to what is their experience. The information also gets into the analytics to understand what exactly is going wrong, whether it's a parts needs to be replaced or it is the wrong choice of processor, and that helps us to decide which vendor to work with and which component we need to do more research. And this data gets into data lake to see whether any other discovery or insight we can find from multidimensional analysis or running some unsupervised or semi-supervised modeling. And that is really helping us in preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance. So often we get tickets which help us to communicate with the user or his family member to restart the sunglass, or we often voluntarily tell them that the sunglass will get replaced quickly. We have identified a problem. And also in predictive maintenance, as it has already the self-diagnostics, we can check if the scheduled self-diagnostic tool is running to check the health of the sunglass itself. In second business case, it's a more real life scenario. If the user is feeling unwell and he is alone at home, it's a very common scenario in very I'd say in very various parts of the society, especially those who are mid to high income group, or if the person is already in his retirement age and living alone. Maybe he is not living with someone else, but his family comes to visit him, and he might get social assistance once or twice in a day to check his status. So if he gets sick, the sunglass automatically detects and it analyzes the situation, whether the person is really sleeping or he is sick. If it is not fever, if it is not psychological breakdown, there could be a lot of other reason to fall sick. For example, this sunglass is able to learn the health condition or the prescription schedule of the user. So it can check and identify whether it is sick, and that we have put a threshold that if the possibility is more than 65%, for example, I'm giving this threshold as example, it will first send a text to its family member. And if the text gets replied, that it is able to read and understand that text. If it is unable to understand the text, replied text, or the text is not read or replied in a certain time, it will make a phone call or place a phone call automatically to its family members. And before arriving of the assistance, it will monitor the activities of the user, what is normal and what is not normal, and it will also register the biological data, for example, what the data we get through feedback. This sunglass has also this biosensors for body temperature and heartbeat. So the output or the real value, what we are adding here, is the proactive human assistance. That means this sunglass is helping one person to live alone with a virtual assistant who is smart enough to call at human assistance. This, we take the pride to say that our solution, we always follow few principles, and one of them is human-centric AI. And we do not compromise with the ethics of artificial intelligence. So we are trying to develop this virtual assistant for a specific group of people. So this virtual assistant can act almost as human, but it will not replace the human. Rather, it will help other human to provide better assistance to its users. We have used collective intelligence, and the collective intelligence in a short way. In this image, we are seeing there are many sunglasses connected to each other. So there are few meta data, or a few basic knowledge gets shared across all the sunglasses. For example, a user is using it in Japan, so this sunglass knows what is sushi. Another user is using it in Italy, and that sunglass knows what is pizza. This information gets synchronized. So in future, where if the Japanese person sees a pizza, the sunglass will be able to detect it's a pizza, and it will be able to communicate to its user. So here we are following two philosophies. Only generic knowledge gets shared. That means which are common knowledge to everyone, which should be common knowledge to everyone. For example, the food recognition. For example, the currency. For example, the various kind of bottles. One could be Coca-Cola, one could be Pepsi, other could be water. This kind of knowledge gets shared. So every sunglass is learning something new almost every day, or helping the AI model to perform better by enriching various kind of data, whether it is an image, whether it's a new word, whether it's a new phrase, or what is the context of a different scenario. The context of a different scenario, for example, in one scenario, if we assume that there is a table, there is a cake, and there is a person. But if we put one candle on top of the cake, the entire context gets different. That means it's a birthday. But again, in different culture, the birthday gets celebrated in a different way with different food. So those context knowledge is also gets shared. The second philosophy what we follow, no private data or user specific knowledge gets shared in any way. As we are trying to develop a virtual assistant to assist a blind person as the user, so this sunglass is more focused to train to get more accustomed with its user, so the user adoption becomes faster. So it can identify the family members. It can remind the user about some specific event, for example, the time to take medicine, and it can listen almost all the conversation if it is turned on between the user and the other person, and based on that it also understands the hierarchy in the family, or the family bondings. It does not say that one lady is in front of you, it says that your sister is in front of you. So this private and user specific knowledge it gains, and perhaps a lot it gains about its user, but those information is never gets pushed into the cloud. That means those data are not coming to help any specific generic knowledge base to get enriched. One funny fact here, to train a virtual assistant to identify object and especially to identify identify a scenario, a lot of scenario we had to train those it should ignore. For example, if there is a nude lady or nude male in front of this camera, it will ignore. And to make the sunglass understand that it's a nude, we had to use some 100,000 or 200,000 of nude pictures to make this sunglass learn what is nudity and what needs to be ignored. I hope those parts should not also be ignored when we are training one machine to assist human in a more human way, and which is really participating in our regular interaction, which is trying to help us, and his level of help always depends on our cooperation with him, and who is smart enough to acquire knowledge by itself. So in the audience, if there is any AI enthusiast or people working with plan is curious about how difficult or easy the AI world is, I would say that to make a machine perform better, it also needs to understand what is bad performance. And that bad performance also needs to be trained, or at least it needs to be in the knowledge base. To my audience, I would be having plenty of time to respond any questions. So if you have any questions, please post it to the channel, and the moderator will be helping us to get synchronized on the question and answer. So after collective intelligence, what is the improved life with AI and big data we have found? The first thing we found that it increases the self-esteem. The self-confidence and autonomy gets back, and based on the post-user survey, almost 90% those who have used it more than 4 weeks, they have given us feedback that their level of autonomy is better, and that and their life became bit changed, but in a positive way, so they have better self-confidence. They are getting a new meaning of life. I can remember one of my user who said that he used to read a lot of books, but after losing his eyesight, he was unable to read by himself, and he had to depend on someone else. And at some point, he also felt that asking someone to read books or newspaper for him may not be always suitable for his assistant. So he gradually stopped asking. But now with the sunglass, he is getting the news information almost whenever he wants. And whatever the site, public news outlet he wants to. So that helped him to gain back his leisure time more enjoyable, which he used to have. May not be 100%, but definitely it was better than living in an isolation. Evolve from self-isolation to an involved person. What we have found that the blind people are not usually not isolated from the society. They make themselves isolated even from their family in many ways. One research study showed that blind people gradually lose the capacity to understand the taste of various foods. When I would consider we are lucky, we can see the food, our brain works differently. But due to the lack of this visual information, they loss of appetite is another common psychosomatic disorder in blind people community, and I would say globally it is more than 46%. I'm not very accurate about this percentage here. I'm telling from my memory. If anybody recurs, I'd be glad to provide the reference later on. So, but what I was saying that as this sunglass helps them to understand what is around them, to understand what is happening around them, and that is giving them the self-esteem to get more involved in their family. And also, as they are now more aware with knowledge, more aware with the understanding about their surroundings, they can participate in many ways. Contribution to the society. They are now able to up to date with social affairs. For example, even to make a phone call, out of our 300 target interviewee, to make a phone call, approximately 286 people said that they are unable to make a phone call by themselves. They have to wait for an assistance. But as this sunglass has this built-in phone feature, so they have that independence of making the call with their voice command. And so they can now check on their relatives status, which earlier their relatives used to check with their status. So we found that they are becoming involved more into the society, and they are also very much aware now about the social affairs. Even during this COVID-19 period, they, on an average, our users made 6 calls every day to their relatives to check the status. The visually impaired people, especially those who have lost their eyesight, they have a constant fear of left alone, and that is not due to their family members or assistant is ignoring them. This is, according to psychologists, it's a common symptom among 100 fully visually eyesight lost people. And with this kind of virtual assistants, their fear of left alone is less, because whenever they want, they know how to reach for their family members. Even if it is over a call, they know what to ask for and how to make their time more productive. We have found one interesting way, because this sunglass is first utilized through blind association in a country, and we found that the users, it was initially 7 users, and they have started interaction between them from home through this sunglass, and they are starting to build a community. So that means they started to share their problem with some similar person, and they now do not need to wait for a focus group session or workshop organized by some association. So they have now the liberty to make friends and to build a friendship as well as the community. Contribution to the economy. This virtual assistant minimizes the assistance cost. That means now one person, with the help of these virtual assistants, can stay more longer time without without constant human assistance. So giving an example, if a person was blind and his uh, son or daughter used to assist him. Now that son or daughter can go at least for a part-time job rather than staying 24 hours at home to assist his father or mother. We are also trying to make the possibility of re-employment. There are few blind people, those who used to work as customer service agent or telesales agent. We are working with some organization to develop content for them so they can to try out whether they can get back to the real dignified life with a job. And we are anticipating some new kind of job may also get created. So contribution to the economy, it is minimizing the assistance cost. More people can get become more productive, and the chances of re-employment is there. In a nutshell, in 40 or 45 minutes, my plan is to have at least 10-15 minutes window to interact with the audience if possible. This is how we are trying to do, and we have proved that with the help of AI and big data, the living quality of marginalized people can be improved. AI is not only for the corporates, not only for the marketeers to make better placement of their advertisements to increase the sales. Artificial intelligence should be human-centric, only for human, and AI should be for all. That's all from me now. Thank you. This is my LinkedIn and Twitter account. Please feel free to get connected, and if anybody has any question, maybe after two days, I try to respond over these channels. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I don't know if you want have time to ask live to a couple of questions that have arrived on the YouTube channel.
Oh, sure. I would love to hear, but I am not a very knowledgeable person, so I don't know whether I'll be able to reply all the questions.
Oh, okay, no problem. If you can't answer, maybe we can arrange a response later on in time during maybe an email or any other way.
Okay.
Paolo Cimero is asking, he has a few questions to you. Let's go back to the designing and prototyping phase of the project. He asks if you have experienced with placing the data scientists in cross-functional teams when you were studying the project in the early stages, or if the data scientists were made in a study the problems in a group alone.
Can you repeat the say the question from the data scientist onwards? If I have a experienced data scientist in a team, after that I did not hear very well.
If they were placed in a cross-functional teams with maybe impaired people, or if they were working alone.
Well, here is the caveat. In this empathy, I told that everything based on empathy. While we were talking to the blind people, interviewing and trying to feel their pain, number one, we never used a fixed questionnaire, because with fixed questionnaire, the answer can get biased, or the question itself is biased because we are trying to drive some solution. So what we did, we just tried to talk and observe, and we found more ideas, we pinpointed more more problems of their life by observing. We all have some problems which we are not aware of, but some other person can see and tell us. So the data scientists, or at least the senior data scientists, were also part of this empathy during the empathize phase, and they participated in define and ideate. In sprint planning, then prototype. I mean, what I want to say, this cross-functional team, yes, they're cross-functional, but uh, if you think of Scrum, then these cross-functional teams gets better aligned. So in the sprint, usually the data science team works in a group where there is and every group is formed of various various background. Core ML engineer, data science, data engineering. If the feature is more aligned to social science, some social scientist expert. If the feature is aligned to psychology, some psychologists, because when the data scientist and data engineer will be processing data based on psychological parameter, definitely we need some domain expert to help us to interpret what this data means. So every team we are working are cross-functional team, and there are many teams with different focus.
Okay, thank you. Then we have another question from Imtiaz Sazin. Sorry for the pronounce of your name, mate. He asks to you, he wants to know, what was the reason behind working with sunglasses? Why sunglasses? Why not something else?
That's a very interesting question. At the beginning of any startup or any innovation, I can say one thing now, because this is my third startup maybe, that at the beginning, the more people will try to discourage you by saying it is next to impossible. You have to think it is enough innovative that people are still not understanding. Okay. So that's, yeah, the reason for sunglasses is we found it is one of the common object across the globe, where I personally have interviewed in 8 countries, and I found almost every blind people are wearing sunglasses. And the solutions we were trying to develop, we also identify one mobile app type of solution would be doable or not, because that would be more cost effective. But it was turned down by our users because they do not want to carry mobile phone. Okay. And moreover, we have to also remember the global context. 90% of the blind people belongs to the low to mid income group. Another idea we had, which we ruled out, whether we can use the Google Glass or HoloLens or those kind of augmented reality type of thing. But what we found, and that's why I would say design thinking, those items are not designed for blind people. Those items are not developed to serve blind people. Those had a different business objective, and again, cost was a very strong concern. So those also got ruled out. Then our easiest way could have been, because in this project, one of our hardest or most challenging area is the hardware. We have to keep the weight below 120 gram maximum, and that it has to be comfortable enough that a person can use it whole day. And we have to incorporate a lot of electronic pieces, whether it's a camera, processor, memory, power charging unit, battery, a lot of things in a place. So sunglass was ideal. But we also tried whether this sunglass can be paired with a mobile app. So our AI performance could have been done from the mobile app, and the sunglass is just input output device of image and voice. But one of my user told, so now you are suggesting me I will be buying your sunglass, I'll be buy one phone to download your app, then I'll be moving with 2 devices, and both of device I need to put into charging at the end of the day. So I forgot the name of the person who questioned. That is why we took the pain to develop one sunglass which is self-sufficient to become a virtual assistant.
That's very good. And this comes from me. Is there a way to try the product here in Italy?
After COVID-19. We are training it in 4 languages. With its Italian performance, I am not happy. It speaks worse Italian than me.
Yes, and the last one, because we have some more minutes.
Yeah.
Did you face any privacy concern with the new GDPR rules here in Europe?
Not exactly, because GDPR, I would say, was in our mandate from the very beginning. Okay, so we applied privacy-based design and security-based design. So it is it is fully GDPR compliant. And also, if any user, so far it has not happened, if any user wants to discontinue, his private data will be automatically distracted, because the logs, I'm just giving a hypothetical example, the logs we are maintaining, it is tagged with the device ID. So if the device ID gets deactivated, all the logs and metadata will get automatically destroyed.
Okay,
Any further questions?
On the deadline, Pierpaolo Cimero asks, have you used an NPL algorithm using the Italian language? Any framework or library to recommend?
For that, we may organize another webinar. I am not going to tell which algorithm is going to be used. And you might have also noticed I have not told the name of the sunglass price, anything. So here I am not doing any kind of hidden marketing, or neither I am trying to make people biased one algorithm over another. All the algorithms are good. It depends on the context which one will provide better accuracy. For example, Google has many algorithms which are good maybe in their context, but in many other contexts we have tried, when they made it open, in our context it did not work well. So all the algorithms are good. It is the duty of data scientist or the team to to try out few algorithms and choose the right one, and also think about the future scalability. If it were the last question, I would like to finish answering the question and maybe also the session. One thing we should always remember: our best intelligence can never be artificial. It has to be always human intelligence. Okay, so all the algorithms are good. It is us who has to decide.
Thank you so much for being here. For all the